Everyone saw the blood on her sleeve, but no one asked why. That's the part that haunts me, not the punch, not even the silence that followed. It's the way the world just kept spinning, like violence on your doorstep was as normal as the sunrise. That morning started quiet. Too quiet, if I'm honest. The kind of quiet where you feel your bones waiting for something, even if you don't know what. I was sitting on the porch, coffee gone lukewarm in my hand, staring at a busted fence rail that had been bothering me for weeks. The sun hadn't even climbed all the way up yet, and then I heard Lee's voice. It wasn't her normal voice. It was tight, controlled, like a fuse right before it burns out. You're not allowed to step onto our land without a warrant. My head lifted, slow, like my body already knew what I'd see. Two men, mirrored sunglasses. Tactical polos stretched 2 sizes too tight. Smugness dripping off them like sweat and testosterone leaking out their ears. One carried a clipboard. The other didn't need one, he just carried tension. His shoulders were rolled forward, fists twitching at his sides like the muscles were begging for permission. Authorized to enforce code compliance, the shorter one said, tapping a fake badge like it meant something. Lee didn't flinch. For a hinge, you're threatening us over a fence hinge. Her boots planted hard into the gravel. Her hair pulled back so tight not a single strand dared show fear. That's my wife. Always has been. The tall one stepped closer, his boot scraping the gravel, hands low, palms open but ready. Last warning, ma'am. Her voice didn't shake. Not resisting, just disagreeing. And then, without signal, without pause, he moved. A fist, fast, brutal. It cracked across her cheek so hard I heard it over the wind. Her body twisted midair and hit the gravel like the earth itself had rejected her. The mug slipped from my hand. Coffee splattered across the porch boards, and for half a second, just half a second, I froze. Lee's lips split open. Blood smeared her chin, her palms raw from trying to catch herself. And she looked up at me, eyes wide, blinking through pain, not crying, not breaking, and that made it worse. She got physical, the tall one said flatly, like he was reading a script. I responded with appropriate force. Appropriate, the word leaked out of me before I knew I'd spoken. Quiet, dangerous, low. My fists clenched, my knees bent, my body begged me to lunge, but I didn't move, couldn't. Something inside me locked up, froze solid. And in that frozen second, I was 8 years old again. Kitchen linoleum cold under bare feet, the smell of burnt garlic hanging in the air. My mother's back turned, trying to fix it before he noticed. But he noticed. The quiet drop in his voice, the air turning heavy, poisonous. The spoon slipping from her hand, too slow to pick it up. His glare cutting sharper than any strike. I had stepped forward once, all those years ago, said one word, stop. He turned, eyes like knives, and then his voice calm as a prayer, see what you made me do. I never moved again after that. Not back then, not in that kitchen, not in that silence. And now, years later, trained, armed, stronger, I froze the same way. Lee sat up slowly, her hand pressed against her ribs. She looked at me, really looked at me. You saw that, her voice cracked in a way that made my teeth ache. I nodded, couldn't find the words. Then why the hell didn't you stop it? Her words cut deeper than his fist, and I had no answer, because the truth was worse than silence. From across the road, a voice cut in. Now hold on, someone called. I said you needed to punch up your bylaws, not punch people. Walter, my neighbor, chaos gremlin, beekeeper, amateur drone pilot, accidental conscience. He stood on his porch, shirtless, binoculars in one hand, cereal bowl under his arm like it was a newborn. Lee, you good? He asked. She gave the tiniest nod. That's what I figured. You've always had a mean right hook, even when it's just words. The two men didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't care. They just turned, walked back to their side-by-side like they'd dropped off mail. But then came the SUV, dust cloud rising, custom plate, HOA sticker on the windshield like a threat. And out stepped Karen. If Botox and litigation had a child, it would dress exactly like her. She scanned the scene, Lee on the gravel, me motionless, and gave us the same look she probably gave expired yogurt. "I assume you'll want to file a complaint," she said smoothly. "The board's email is on the newsletter. Check your spam folder." She tapped her phone, didn't wait for an answer. "Had you addressed the prior fence violation, this could have been avoided." Walter muttered, "She makes Emperor Palpatine look like a guidance counselor." Then louder, "Don't worry, I'll be listening to the police scanner in case she calls in a drone strike." Karen didn't respond. She drove away like she had brunch reservations with someone else's civil liberties. Lee stood, slow and guarded, one arm across her ribs. I stepped toward her. She flinched. Not dramatic, just enough. Enough to slice me open from the inside. She walked back to the house, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding in what little she had left. And I just stood there, holding nothing but an empty mug and a kind of shame that etches itself into your bones. That night I didn't sleep. I sat on the porch, bourbon by my boot, knife in my lap, staring at the disturbed gravel where she'd fallen. And in my chest, one question echoed louder than the cicadas in the dark. What happens when a protector waits too long to protect? 2 days later, the silence broke, but not the way it should have. No apology, no arrest, no knock on the door, just a hand-delivered notice. Not through the post office. No, this was personal. A teenage kid in a neon vest trudged up the driveway like he was carrying radioactive waste. The words, HOA Courier, were scribbled across the vest in black Sharpie, like a kid's science project. He shoved the envelope into my hand without looking me in the eye. "Have a better day," he muttered, and then he was gone. Inside, violation of Section 18. Unregistered livestock containment alteration. A fine of $275 if the perimeter gate hinge wasn't corrected in 72 hours. Same fence, same hinge, same rage. Lee read it, set the letter on the counter with surgical precision, and walked to the kitchen. She opened the fridge, pulled out an ice pack, pressed it to her still bruised jaw. The quiet of it hurt more than the bruise. I followed. Each step felt like trespassing in my own home. Lee eyes. "Don't," one word, sharp, final. She opened the silverware drawer, moved a spoon, closed it, opened it again, swapped 2 forks, not angry, not sad, just detached like she'd pressed pause on being human. The clinking of metal filled the room, too loud, too empty. "You hungry?" I asked, desperate for something, anything. "I ate earlier." "I didn't see you eat." She stopped, turned, her eyes cut through me like glass. "You didn't see a lot of things." That line hit harder than the enforcer's fist. That night she moved into the guest room. Didn't explain. She didn't need to. The open door wasn't an invitation. It was a warning shot. Meanwhile, Karen was thriving. Operation Neighborhood Order, she called it. A full HOA update posted to Facebook, complete with bullet points like it was a military campaign. Perimeter harmony review. Unauthorized gates and fencing modifications will be cited. Daily compliance patrols authorized. They weren't hiding it anymore. This wasn't about fences. It was about control. The next morning, I spotted them, 2 new enforcers circling the far end of the property. Tactical vests, clipboards, matching sunglasses. They hovered near the easement, measuring, jotting notes, but not crossing the line. One of them looked up, smiled like we were at a barbecue. "Just checking setback buffer compliance," he said. "You're real close to the limit." "So are you," I shot back. He chuckled, wrote something down. Walter, always watching, called them the HOA Gestapo. He waved a citation in my direction like it was a carnival prize. "They fine me for aesthetic obstruction," he said. Apparently my bunker portholes don't match. I told them the only thing obstructing aesthetics around here is Karen's soul. For a moment, I almost smiled. Almost. Later that night, I sat in the barn with a flashlight and a stack of every HOA notice we'd ever received. Each one felt like a trap disguised as bureaucracy. The more I read, the heavier Lee's silence grew in my chest. I looked up once, caught her walking past the barn window. Didn't slow, didn't look in, just walked. Arms crossed, shoulders tight. Inside, I found her braiding her hair on the couch, with the kind of focus most people save for bomb disarming. "I need to fix this," I said. She didn't look up, didn't stop. "No," she said. "You need to decide who you are because right now, I don't think you know." Then she turned the volume up one notch on the TV. Not two, just enough to say, "Conversation over." The back of her head, cut sharper than any blade. The next morning, Walter pulled up in his camo golf cart, a drone buzzing overhead like an angry hummingbird. He cradled a jug of something cloudy under one arm. "I call it kombusta," he said proudly. "Half kombucha, half fuel, cleans the engine and the colon." I stared. "You're joking." "Best part, HOA doesn't regulate internal combustion or intestinal. Yet," he winked. I didn't laugh, he noticed. "They find me again," he said. "Weaponized composting. I told them it's just enthusiastic gardening." He dropped into a chair beside me. After a long pause, I asked the question that had been eating me alive. "You ever freeze, Walt?" He turned serious. Rare for him, his eyes went to a dent in his truck fender. "My ex put that there. Hammer. 2011. Missed my skull by 6 inches. I ducked. Didn't freeze, but I'll never forget that half second where I wasn't sure. That second doesn't leave you, but you don't have to live in it either." That stuck hard. That night, I sat in the dark again, watching as another patrol hovered near the gate. One of them shined a flashlight across the gravel, slow, deliberate. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just watched. My hand gripped the chair arm until the wood creaked. The man who froze in the driveway was still inside me, but now he had company, someone colder, someone waiting for permission to step out. I thought I was just building a case, collecting proof, documenting. But what I was really building was a line in the dirt. And they had just crossed it. The morning after, everything felt wrong. The wind, the stillness, the kind of silence before a storm. And then Walt waved from across the road like he'd just uncovered a prophecy. "You free," he shouted. "Define free," I muttered. "Free enough to learn the HOA may have declared psychological war on you." He held up a hard drive like it was the 10 Commandments. "Got something you need to see." We went down into his bunker. Racks of canned food labeled by mood, solar panels, a squirrel skull wearing Ray-Bans, the works. And then the laptop screen lit up. Drone footage, audio, my wife at the gate, enforcers moving in. And a whisper buried in the static. "Use the wife, he'll snap, he always does." The words froze the air in my lungs. "Roll it back," I said. And when the face on the screen came into view, my chest tightened like a vice. Ray Dobbs. A name that tasted like rust and gunpowder. We served together, same unit, same mess, and now he was standing behind Karen. Which meant this was never about a fence hinge. This was a trap. Months in the making. Built just for me. They said his name once, and suddenly the air in that bunker felt thinner. Ray Dobbs. I hadn't thought about him in years, not because I forgot, but because forgetting was safer. His face on that grainy drone footage pulled me straight back to a place I never wanted to visit again. Afghanistan, Ghazni province, dust grinding in my teeth, sweat running into my eyes, and one mistake that ended with a woman and a child crumpled in the dirt. The footage from Walt's drone didn't just show the punch. It showed the plan. A whisper in static, "Use the wife, he'll snap, he always does." Ray's voice, same tone he used when he wanted a fight, same tone that made translators flinch. Walt froze the screen on his face. Short beard, combat cut, eyes like burnt-out bulbs. "That him?" Walt asked. "That's him," I said. My throat was dry. "That's Ray." "You know hims." "We served together," I said. "Same unit, same mess." Walt whistled low. "Figures. Guy looks like trouble wrapped in a discount gym membership. Was he always like that?" I didn't answer at first because I wasn't in the bunker anymore. I was back in that village compound, the mission that wasn't supposed to be loud. Intel said no weapons. A simple meet, not a raid. We stacked outside the door, waiting for the go, but Ray moved early. Kicked the door, shouted something the interpreter didn't even understand. "Pop, pop." 2 shots, 2 bodies. A woman, a boy. The kid was holding a pot lid shiny enough to spook him. Ray thought it was a weapon. It was. And when the dust settled, Ray just stood there, breathing heavy, smiling like he'd saved the world. No remorse, no blink. I wrote the report that ended his career, not out of spite, out of necessity. Someone had to say no. Now here he was, years later, working for Karen, whispering about my wife like she was bait. "So this isn't about fences," Walt said, leaning back. "No," I replied. My voice felt heavier than the bunker walls. "It's about me. This was set up months ago, and I walked right into it." Walt chewed on the edge of a pen like it might give him answers. "They were counting on you to lose it. That's what Ray does. He pushes until something breaks. Did Karen know who she hired? Either she knew and didn't care, or she knew and liked it." On the screen, Ray's face was frozen mid-smirk, daring me to blink. "You think he's done?" Walt asked quietly. "No." "You gonna freeze again?" I didn't answer. Walt sighed. "Hope's a poor security system. I recommend tripwires, or emotionally manipulative squirrels." I almost laughed, almost. But when I walked out of that bunker, the world outside felt smaller, like the land itself had shifted. Every fine, every notice, every patrol, none of it had been about compliance. It was bait. They were testing my patience, testing my breaking point. And I had failed the test. That night, I didn't go home right away. I drove past the county line to a gravel access road no one used anymore. Parked. Got out. The wind hit me cold and sharp, like it remembered the man I used to be. But all I could hear in my head were those words. "Use the wife, he'll snap, he always does." How long had this been building? Did Ray find me on his own, or did Karen go looking for him? Did they sit over wine and swap stories? Did she laugh when he told her about the boy with the pot lid? I pressed my hands on the hood of the truck, breathing slow, steady. But the truth was loud inside me. This was never about the HOA. It was a trap, and I had dragged Lee into it without ever knowing. When I finally got home, the house was silent. Lee's door closed, lights off. I stood there in the hall with my hand half raised, wanting to knock, wanting to tell her everything. About Ray, about the ghosts I carried, about how the danger in our driveway was danger I had unknowingly invited in. But I dropped my hand, stepped back. Went outside instead. The porch creaked under my boots. I sat with bourbon by my side, knife in my lap, and the stars staring down like indifferent witnesses. Somewhere down the road, an ATV rolled slow. No headlights, just shadow moving through the dust, watching. And then Walter's drone rose up behind my fence like a guardian angel with propellers. Green LED blinking in the dark. My phone buzzed. A single text. 10:00. HOA's watching again. I didn't respond. Just stared out at the fence line, the knife heavy in my hand, and whispered 2 words under my breath. "Not again." They thought they knew my breaking point. They thought they could use my past against me, but they forgot what happens when you wake up the wrong part of it. There's a moment right before violence when the whole world seems to hold its breath. The wind goes still. Animals go silent. Even the earth feels like it's waiting. That's what it felt like the next evening as I walked the fence line. No flashlight, no tools, just instinct, just suspicion. The horses were stiff, their ears pinned back, eyes wide. That's never good. I moved slow through the tall grass, past the bins, past the creek bed, toward the old north tank, half buried, almost forgotten. That's when I saw it. A boot mark in the dirt, fresh, pressed deep. Another one, angled like someone had stopped suddenly. A snapped branch, fence wire bent where it shouldn't be. And then silence, not the clean kind, the hunting kind. I crouched low, listening. Too late. A fist came out of the dark. It smashed across my jaw and spun me halfway around. I stumbled, caught the gatepost, barely upright before the second shadow hit me square in the ribs. Pain lit me up, breath gone, vision spinning. And then a voice, calm, confident. Evening soldier. Ray Dobbs. He stepped out of the dark, like he'd been waiting there his whole life. Funny seeing you without your clipboard, I spat, tasting blood. Figured we'd skip the paperwork, he said, smirking. Karen sends her regards. Behind him, another man moved, bigger, bulkier, brass knuckles taped to his fist. The trap had sprung. And this time, freezing wasn't an option. The first hit rattled my teeth. The second nearly folded me in half. By the time I caught my breath, I was on my knees, the gravel biting into my palms. Ray's shadow loomed over me, calm as a man watering his lawn. Been a long time, Ellis. Still got that temper, or did you finally bury it? I spat blood into the dirt. You'll find out. The big one stepped forward, brass knuckles gleaming under the moonlight. He swung wide. I ducked, grabbed a loose latch off the fence post, and swung it hard. Metal met muscle. He staggered with a roar, clutching his thigh. Ray clapped slow, sarcastic. Not bad, but you used to hit harder. I lunged, shoulder driving into his ribs. We hit the dirt together, rolling, fists flying. Dust filled my mouth, my ribs screaming with every impact. He clawed at my throat. I slammed the latch against his hand until bone gave way. He yelped, pulling back, but the big one tackled me from behind, crushing me into the dirt. A fist cracked the back of my skull. Stars burst across my vision. The world tilted sideways. And then, everything went quiet. Not just around me, inside me. I was back in Ghazni again. A woman screaming, a boy with a pot lid. Ray's voice in my ear, they looked hostile. 2 shots, 2 bodies. My pen shaking that night, as I wrote the report that ended his career. When my eyes snapped open again, something inside me had switched. I twisted under the enforcer's weight, found a jagged piece of gate frame in the dirt, and rammed it into his shoulder. He howled, rolled off me. I came up fast, elbowed his throat. He dropped, gagging for air. Ray tried to run. Bad move. I caught him by the collar, yanked him back into the mud. We hit hard. My fists followed. 1, 2, 3, rebar, gravel. My knuckles split, blood slick and warm. His lip tore. His teeth shone red. This what you wanted, I roared. This your plan. He just smiled, bloodied, broken, smiling. And that's when I felt it, a presence behind me. Lay. Barefoot, standing in the field like a ghost. Her face pale, her eyes fixed on me, on the man I had become in those few violent minutes. She didn't scream, she didn't move, she just spoke. That's not the man who didn't stop them. Her voice was flat, empty. Then she turned, walked back toward the house. That line carved through me deeper than Ray's fists ever could. Beneath me, Ray coughed, laughed through the blood. Told you, he rasped. You always break eventually. I stared down at him. My fists trembled, ready to cave his face in once and for all. But I didn't. Not for him, not for me, for her. I stood, walked away, limped across the pasture, my ribs screaming, my jaw swelling. By the time I made it to the porch, I collapsed into the chair. My hands shook, blood drying into the cracks of my skin. And for the first time in years, I didn't recognize them. These weren't my hands. They belonged to someone I thought I had buried overseas. Inside, I heard lights flick off one by one. The click of a lock, not a barricade, not yet, but close. Out on the road, Walter's drone hovered silently, one red light blinking in the dark. He'd seen it, all of it. And he hadn't interrupted, because he knew. I sat there until the blood dried stiff on my shirt, until my heartbeat slowed from a war drum to a whisper. And in that silence, I finally admitted something I never wanted to say out loud. Maybe I wasn't a protector anymore. Maybe I was something worse. Ray hadn't broken me. Karen hadn't either. What they did was more dangerous. They took the brakes off. And there's nothing more dangerous than a man who stops reacting and starts planning. By the time dawn crept over the pasture, I wasn't tired. I wasn't even angry. I was clear, cold, surgical. I spread the old ranch schematics across the barn table. Elevation lines, drainage points, fence integrity, blind corners. Once, they were just drawings of a place meant for peace. Now, they were a battlefield map. Every 20 feet, I rewired the fence with steel core trip lines. Bells, bottle caps, subtle alarms. Every 50 feet, Walter and I mounted Frankencams built from busted drones and old iPhones. Silent sentries, watching. Walt showed up before noon with a box of sensors under one arm and a thermos in the other. It smelled like molasses, gasoline, and bad decisions. You hunting body armor or mutant raccoons? He asked. Not hunting anything, I said flatly. Just making sure I know before they know I know. For once, he didn't joke, he just nodded. That afternoon, Karen's side-by-side rolled slow past the gate. Ray sat in the passenger seat, sunglasses hiding his swollen eye. He smiled at me. The same smile he wore in Ghazni, the same one from the punch. The smile that said, I know your breaking point better than you do. They kept rolling. Lee was on the porch, arms crossed, expression blank, not afraid, not relieved, worse, neutral. Like she was calculating whether I was preparing to protect us, or preparing to be alone. That night I stocked the barn. Water, fuel, radios, food, not panic, not paranoia, strategy. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a perimeter. And if they came again, the land itself would answer first. They didn't strike at night like I expected. They struck in daylight with cameras. The knock came at 6:12 a.m. Walter stood there, thermos in one hand, tablet in the other, his face hard in a way I'd only seen once before, in Kandahar, when bad news had just rolled in over the radio. We've got a problem, he said, and it's not just a bad Yelp review. He set the tablet on the table like it was live ammo. The footage rolled grainy, shaky, but clear enough, me standing over Ray, boot pressing into his chest, blood on my fists. Lee in the background like a ghost. No context, no trespass, no brass knuckles, just me, looking like a warlord on farmland. Ray tangled in the net. Karen screaming, flashbangs roaring. The camera cut out before the part where they hit first, before Lee's bruises, before the silence that ate me alive. They stripped the context, I said, voice low. My jaw clenched so hard I heard the bone creak. Yeah, Walter muttered, and it's working. He pulled up a news feed. Local anchors with bright teeth called me volatile. Neighbors, voices blurred by digital filters said he laid traps. He was planning something worse. On Facebook, a headline popped up. The rancher Rambo, when HOA fines turn into domestic militancy. Walter shook his head. They're not fighting you with fists anymore, they're filming you. This is optics warfare now. I didn't answer, I didn't need to, he was right. At noon, a courier car rolled up, embossed seal on the envelope, money behind every letter. I tore it open. Violation of Code 32C, aggravated trespass deterrence, hostile intent toward recognized HOA volunteers. Pending civil suit, $75,000, court date stamped in red. They're not just trying to break you, I whispered. They're trying to bankrupt me. Walter didn't speak, he didn't have to. That evening, Lee came into the living room. She didn't say hello, she didn't ask if I was all right. She just stood there, arms folded, watching the replay on the TV. The same 5 seconds on loop, my boot on Ray's chest. You set that trap, she said quietly. I protected my land. Her eyes burned into mine. Did you, or did you bait them into stepping exactly where you wanted them to? I stood, anger spiking. They assaulted you, Lee, you, and now the world thinks I'm the monster because I refused to let it happen again. Her voice cut sharp. And I'm stuck between two men, the one who froze when it mattered and the one who planned it too well. The room fell silent. Her stare didn't break. You're not the man I married, she said finally. Then what am I? I don't know, but whoever you are now, you scare me more than they do. She turned, slammed the door this time, not just a warning shot, a wall. That night I sat on the porch again. No bourbon, no knife, just me and the quiet hum of paranoia turning into something sharper. Half a mile down the road, a car idled, headlights off, engine low, waiting, watching. I stood, no rifle, no threat, just a flashlight in my hand. I clicked it once, twice, 3 times, a signal only Walter and I used. Nothing. Then one flashback from the car. They weren't here to fight. They were here to frame. The cameras had become their weapons. But I wasn't about to let them write my story. The next morning, Walter slid a thumb drive across the table. Everything, he said. Raw files, timestamps, 2 audio clips I probably shouldn't even have. Mia's face flashed in my mind. Lee's cousin, the civil rights attorney who'd made a career out of eating landlords and bad cops alive. We hadn't spoken in years, but I didn't need pleasantries. I sent the files. Her reply came 10 minutes later, send the complaint draft, now. By dusk, I had a preemptive countersuit drafted sharper than a bayonet. 4 charges, unlawful trespass, false impersonation of law enforcement, use of force under fraudulent authority, defamation through edited materials. Attached, drone footage, medical records, witness statements. A case not built on rage, built on facts. A week later, I walked into county court. Clean boots, silent, Mia at my side, her briefcase humming like a loaded weapon. Karen showed up with 3 lawyers and a pen they clicked like it was supposed to intimidate us. Ray limped in behind them, sunglasses hiding the bruises I'd left behind. The judge barely let them finish. 30 seconds of drone footage was all it took. Lee's bruised face, Ray's fist, the whisper, use the wife, he'll snap. The gavel cracked like thunder. Permanent injunction. Restraining orders. Cease and desist. No more fines, no more patrols, no more enforcers. For the first time since the hinge, the silence felt like peace. 3 days later, Karen resigned. No farewell, no email blast, just a moving truck and a for sale sign that toppled in the wind. Her last message was short. You've made your point. Wrong. I hadn't made a point. I had made a boundary. And this time, they knew better than to cross it. Ray vanished, deleted from the HOA's website like he'd never existed. When Walter tested the compliance hotline, no one answered. Looks like staffing shortages, he muttered, sipping from a thermos labeled emergency juice. I didn't celebrate, didn't gloat. Just pulled down the trip wires, packed away the speakers, raised the flag back on the pole where it had always belonged. For the first time in months, the land looked like a home again. But peace is a fragile thing. That night, Walter joined me on the porch, 2 beers in hand. He sat quiet, watching the sun bleed into the horizon. You used to wait, he said finally, used to freeze. Yes. Now you're the guy who draws the line, and makes sure no one forgets where it is. Supposed to be comforting, I asked. He shook his head, just accurate. We drank in silence. And that's when I saw her, Lee, standing in the doorway, not close, not far, just watching. After a long pause, she stepped out, sat beside me. Not touching, not smiling, just there. Do you ever miss who you were before all this? She asked. I didn't answer right away. The cicadas filled the silence. No, I said finally. I think I finally became who I was supposed to be. She didn't argue, didn't leave. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. I thought it was over, after the injunction, after Karen packed her Botox and left without saying goodbye, after the flag went back up the pole and the tripwires came down. For one fragile week, I thought we had reclaimed peace. But peace doesn't vanish in gunfire or lawsuits. It slips away in silence. It started with the gravel. I'd raked it smooth after pulling down the perimeter rigs. But 3 mornings later, I walked out and saw prints, fresh, deep, not mine. One pair of boots stopping near the gate, another circling wide toward the tree line. They didn't cross, but they didn't need to. That kind of silence doesn't come from neighbors walking their dogs. That night, the dogs barked at nothing. The horses snorted, restless. I sat on the porch, rifle across my knees, listening to the wind. And for the first time since the ruling, I didn't feel like a man who won. I felt like a man being studied. Walt came over the next morning, thermos steaming like a volcano. You've got watchers, he said before I opened my mouth. I raised an eyebrow. How do you know? He grinned, tossed a drone controller into my hand. Because I sent Carl out. Carl wasn't a person. He was Walter's Frankendrone, built from a racing quadcopter, spare lawnmower parts and paranoia. On the monitor, the feed jittered across my property. And there it was, headlights off, parked deep in the trees. A truck, unmarked. They're not gone, I muttered. Karen might have quit, but Ray's the type who doesn't know how. We both watched the screen as the truck idled, engine barely humming. After a minute, the door cracked open. A man stepped out. Not Karen, not some clipboard rookie. Ray. His limp was still there, but the smirk hadn't faded. He looked straight up at the drone camera, like he knew we were watching, and raised a hand in a slow, mocking wave. Walter cursed under his breath. That's not surveillance, that's a message. The feed cut to static. That night, Lee didn't come to the porch. She stayed inside. The sound of her door clicking shut still felt louder than the cicadas. I didn't sleep, didn't even try. I sat in the barn with old gear spread across the table, knife, gloves, field radio, boots with sand still stuck in the laces. Things I hadn't touched in years. Things I swore I'd buried with the man I used to be. But ghosts don't stay buried when someone digs them up. By sunrise, I wasn't just clear, I was ready. I walked the fence line with new eyes, not a rancher's eyes, not even a homeowner, a soldier's. I found blind corners, choke points, shadows that could hold men with bad intentions. The land that used to heal me now looked like an ambush map. And that terrified me more than Ray's smile. When I came back inside, Lee was in the kitchen, hair pulled back, face unreadable. She watched me scrub blood from my knuckles at the sink. You planning to fight a war, she asked quietly, or survive one? I didn't rush the answer. I'm planning to end one. She didn't argue, didn't even nod. She just turned back to the counter, slicing apples with mechanical precision. That was worse than anger, worse than fear. She wasn't fighting me anymore. She was retreating. Later that day, Walter found me tightening the screws on a camera mount. He leaned on the post, arms crossed. You know what scares me more than Ray? I didn't look up. What? You, because you're starting to look like the guy Ray wanted you to be all along. I set the screwdriver down, slow. That's supposed to stop me. No, he said. Just supposed to make you think about what happens if Lee decides she's safer away from you than with you. That one landed like a sucker punch. That night the watchers came closer. I saw their flashlights in the distance, weaving through the trees. They didn't cross the line. Didn't need to, they wanted me to know. At 2:14 a.m., a camera pinged, thermal feed lighting up red. I grabbed the monitor. 3 heat signatures at the gate. I moved quiet, rifle cradled, boots sinking into soft dirt. By the time I got there, they were gone. Just footprints. And a message carved into the wood post with a knife. Still here. I stared at it until the wind chilled my bones. This wasn't about property lines anymore. This wasn't about fines, or bylaws, or hinges. It was about Ray proving what he'd whispered in Ghazni years ago. That no matter how much distance I put between myself and the battlefield, I'd always be his soldier. And the worst part, I wasn't sure he was wrong. The next morning, Lee found me in the barn, maps and schematics spread across the table again. She didn't speak at first. She just stood in the doorway, watching me sketch choke points like a man possessed. Finally, she said, "You're not rebuilding the ranch, you're rebuilding yourself, the version I never wanted to meet." I didn't argue, because she was right. She stepped back. The look in her eyes wasn't anger, wasn't fear, it was worse. It was recognition. As if she'd finally realized the truth, that maybe the man she married never really came home. And as the door closed behind her, I whispered the words I hadn't said since the day we buried our unit's flag overseas. Then I'll end it my way. They didn't come at night, that would have been smart. No, Ray wanted an audience, and Karen always needed a spotlight. It was 4:37 p.m. on a Wednesday when the land itself told me something was coming. The monitor buzzed. 3 heat signatures, 2 large, 1 smaller, steady approach, not wildlife, not neighbors, too deliberate. I tapped Walter's radio. We're live. Copy that, he crackled back. Looks like 2 heavies and a clipboard, you're about to get audited. I stepped out of the barn. No rush, no panic, just boots crunching slow against gravel as the dust cloud rose at the gate. First came Ray, limping but grinning, black vest tight across his chest, the bruise I'd left on his jaw still purple under his sunglasses. Behind him, a new recruit, broad-shouldered, twitching with nervous energy, a rookie trying to look mean. And then Karen. Her hair shellacked into a helmet, sunglasses wide enough to hide an army, a tablet tucked under her arm like it was scripture. She stopped 3 paces from the gate. Her voice was sugar-laced with venom. Mark Ellis, you are in violation of HOA Code Sections 12B, 14C, and Emergency Addendum 19F. You're not law enforcement, I said flatly. No, she purred, but I'm the one who decides what happens next. Ray scanned the field. His eyes flicked from the barn to the porch to the horses. He looked uneasy. Good. The rookie cracked his knuckles. Didn't even notice the subtle click under his boots. The land noticed. I did too. And then chaos bloomed. The first tripwire snapped, triggering Walt's sound rig. From every speaker hidden across the property came a storm of ghosted static, distorted commands, reversed sirens, war tones that rattled the air like a nightmare you couldn't wake from. The rookie froze, eyes wide. Karen stumbled, dropping her tablet. It hit the dirt and spun like a coin. Ray flinched just as the net launched from the gate post, powered by pulleys and counterweights I'd set days before. It caught him mid-step, yanked his legs out, and slammed him face first into the gravel. His knee bent sideways with a sick crack. He screamed once, then twice. The rookie charged forward in panic. Walter's voice rang out overhead, "Incoming." From the barn loft, a bucket tipped. A wave of cattle deterrent, fish oil, hot sauce, and Walter's unique brand of spite splashed across the rookie's chest. He gagged, slipped, and crashed backward into another tripwire. Boom! Flashbang, white light, a roar that cracked the air, then another and another. Karen dropped to her knees, clutching her ears. The rookie curled in the dirt, blinded, coughing. Ray writhed in the net, spitting blood, eyes wild with hate. I stepped forward, slow, boots crunching gravel like punctuation marks. He looked up at me, trembling, still trying to reach for the vest strapped to his chest. I pressed my boot down on him, grinding him into the dirt. "You crossed the line." His lips curled. "You set a trap." "No," I said, "I built a boundary, you ignored it." Karen scrambled to her feet, hair wild, glasses gone. Her voice cracked for the first time since I'd met her. "This is illegal, you'll pay for this." "So was punching my wife," I said coldly. She backed up, stumbled. For once her words faltered. "This is still HOA land. You're still under our." "Not anymore," I cut her off. "You stepped off your yard, now you're on mine." She blinked once. Then she turned, almost tripped, and bolted for the side-by-side. The rookie didn't wait for orders. He scrambled after her, slipping in the mess, falling again, a wreck of sweat and fish oil. Ray stayed on the ground, teeth bared, hate burning behind the pain. Walter climbed down from the loft, cattle prod in one hand, spark launcher in the other. "Y'all good." "Never better," I muttered. We stood there, watching as Karen, Ray, and the rookie vanished in a cloud of dust and shame. Trespassers retreating from their own war. When I turned back to the house, Lee was at the kitchen window. She'd seen it all. The nets, the blasts, the fish oil, me pressing my boot into another man's chest. She didn't come outside, she didn't smile, she didn't even frown. When I walked in later, she was still there, hands still, eyes locked on me like she was trying to remember who I used to be. "You didn't freeze," she said softly. "No," I answered. "But you didn't blink either." Her gaze dropped to my boots, my hands, the stains across my shirt. Sweat, oil, paint, but to her it looked like blood. She turned, walked down the hall, closed her door, not slammed, not locked, just closed. "The way you close a chapter." I stood in the quiet, chest tight, not with fear, not with rage, with the realization that what I'd built wasn't revenge. It was a warning. Not just to them, to me. Karen thought I was the problem. Now she knew I was the consequence. And the next time, it wouldn't be loud. It would be final. I thought the fight was finished after Karen staggered off my land drenched in fish, oil, and fear. I thought the nets, the tripwires, the flashbangs had drawn the final line. But wars don't end when the dust settles. They end when one side runs out of script. And Karen, she still had one left. The knock came at 6:12 a.m. Walter again. Thermos in hand, tablet tucked under his arm, face pale. He didn't even speak. Just dropped the tablet on the table like it was primed to explode. The footage rolled, edited, cropped, stripped. Ray tangled in my net. Karen screaming, me pressing a boot into his chest, my traps detonating like artillery on farmland. No trespass shown, no bruises on Lee's jaw, no whisper about baiting me. Just me, a soldier turned savage. The voiceover on the clip was worse. "This is why rural men can't be left unsupervised. This is what happens when authority is ignored." I didn't blink, didn't even breathe. They turned me into the villain, I said quietly. And it's working, Walter muttered. Within hours, the news ran the segment. Anchors with perfect smiles called me volatile. Neighbors blurred on camera said they feared for their safety. On Facebook, they gave me nicknames: Rancher Rambo, Warlord of the Fence Line. At noon, another courier arrived. This time, not with a fine but with a lawsuit, embossed, stamped, $75,000 in civil damages for aggravated trespass deterrence. They weren't here to fight me anymore. They were here to bury me in paperwork. That night, Lee came into the living room. She didn't speak at first, just stood there watching the same 5 seconds play on the TV, me standing over Ray, boot on chest. You set that trap, she said finally. I protected us. Her voice cut sharper than the paper in my hand. No, you baited them. You built the theater and they filmed the play. I stood. They assaulted you, Lee. And now the world thinks I'm the monster because I finally refused to freeze. She shook her head. I'm stuck between a man who let it happen and a man who planned it too well. Neither one is the man I married. The silence between us cracked wide. Then what am I asked. I don't know, she whispered. But whoever you are now, you scare me more than they do. She slammed the door this time. No hesitation, no warning shot, just final. I sat in that silence until the hum of a car reached me, parked half a mile up, headlights off, engine low, watching. I stood, no rifle, no rage, just a flashlight in my hand. I clicked it once, twice, 3 times, the code Walter and I always used. Nothing. Then one flashback from the car. Not an attack, a message. They weren't here to fight, they were here to frame. And if they wanted a script, I'd give them one they couldn't edit. The next morning, Walter slid a thumb drive across the table. Everything, raw files, timestamps, audio. I didn't hesitate, I sent it all to Mia. Lee's cousin, civil rights attorney, razor-edged. Her reply came fast, send me everything, we'll burn them before they touch a match. Within 48 hours, we filed preemptive charges: unlawful trespass, false impersonation of law enforcement, use of force under fraudulent authority, defamation through edited media. Drone footage attached, hospital records, witness statements, even internal HOA memos, courtesy of someone on the inside who hated Karen more than I did. A week later, I walked into county court. Clean boots, quiet, Mia beside me, sharp enough to cut glass. Karen showed up with 3 lawyers. Ray limped in behind her, sunglasses failing to hide the bruise. The judge let them talk for 30 seconds. Then he watched our footage, Lee's bruised face, Ray's fist, the whisper, use the wife, he'll snap. His gavel cracked like thunder. Permanent injunction. Restraining orders. Cease and desist across all HOA enforcement. No more fines, no more patrols, no more midnight watchers. For the first time in months, the silence didn't feel like bait. It felt like peace. 3 days later, Karen resigned. No goodbye posts, no victory speech, just a moving truck and a faded for sale sign that blew over in the wind. Her final message was short: you've made your point. Wrong. I hadn't made a point. I'd made a boundary. And this time, no one was going to cross it. Ray vanished from the HOA records like he'd never existed. When Walter called the compliance hotline, no one answered. Looks like a staffing shortage, he said, sipping from a thermos labeled emergency juice. We didn't gloat, we didn't brag, we just reset the land, took down the alarms, packed away the cameras, raised the flag back up the pole where it belonged. Normal, but never the same. That evening, Walter sat beside me on the porch, 2 beers in hand. You used to freeze, he said quietly. Yeah, Now you're the guy who draws the line and makes sure no one forgets where it is. Suppose to comfort me, I asked. He shook his head, just the truth. We drank in silence, the land breathing around us for the first time in months. Later, Lee stepped outside. She didn't come close, didn't speak at first, just stood there in the doorway, watching me like she wasn't sure who she'd find. After a long pause, she walked to the porch, sat beside me, not close, not far, just there. Do you ever miss who you were before all this? She asked softly. I didn't answer right away. The cicadas filled the gap. No, I said finally. I think I finally became who I was supposed to be. She didn't argue, didn't leave. That was enough. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need them to fear me because I fought. Now they feared me because I'd stopped fighting. And still won.